Okay then, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the October 11th, 2017 meeting of the Ayer Planning Board, being 6:15. I should like to call to order our meeting for this evening. If I could get a motion to accept the agenda, and I would add as posted, of course. We originally thought we'd have the Great Hall, but we were able to get this room, so we took this room based on the availability for the general public. So there is a minor pending change to the posted agenda for the meeting being conducted in this room as opposed to the Great Hall. Excuse me, there was a typo also. I should point out we know that Groton School Road and Groton Road are two different addresses, and the site we're talking about is actually Washington Street and Groton Road, per quote Assessors Map 13. Again, continuing the verbiage as posted on the agenda. So just a couple of minor pending changes there.
Move to accept the agenda with the stated changes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Unanimous. Thank you. As a precursor again to the meeting, again, welcome. Applicant Adam, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and just a few notes. We have much to deal with, and then I would ask for the applicant to address that which has changed from our last meeting, because as you can see from the folder in front of me and the map that we deal with, we don't need to go back over the history of this. We've been at it a while. I would let you know up front that based on the volume of data involved, in particular regard to a couple of questions, which we'll address during the process, we're going to need a quote legal review for conformity in terms of the bond, for example, and that will necessitate, I dare say, a continuation to November 2nd. Now, I'd like to think that I could get a legal commentary back from all parties concerned immediately and then post a very quick meeting. But I think a very quick meeting in municipal terms means November 2nd is, I would hope that the applicant understands that. We have many changes to look at, and the board, as of yesterday, has now just got a draft order of conditions to review and vote on, which I would not want to press them to do so tonight. So I would want the full board to have time to digest that, and again also go through legal review for town. And then I think November 2nd we would be, unless there's the unexpected, I think November 2nd we're ready for a decision. So the plans before us, originally I think September 2017 are the ones we're dealing with, which are in front of us. There's a number of planning board notes I would like the applicant to address during his current presentation, which covers some of the history. Don't have to go into great detail, but we'll look for the planning board notes to be in conformance with the decision we make. The question comes of frontage. That's something you want to be able to answer tonight adequately. And the question of a common drive also is a question you're going to want to be able to answer tonight. And then I think that will, barring any other unexpected, should bring us pretty close to closure. So with that, if the board agrees, then I think it would be appropriate for sorry about that. Did you all hear that?
Your mission, should you choose to accept?
I have my phone turned into my hearing aid, so I hear things that you don't. Sorry about that. Where was I? Yes. So we want review of our condition statement, which I understand has been provided to the applicant, and that also necessitates the November 2nd for us to make a final decision, which I believe we're very, very close to. So again, unless the board has any questions at this point, I'd like the applicant to do its summary, if you will, up to this point. Any questions from the board? Okay. Adam, if you would, please.
Thank you.
And again, identify yourself for the record.
I certainly will. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Adam Costa. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant for the proposal that's before you this evening. We were before you just a few weeks ago. I think it makes perfect sense to provide sort of a very brief overview of the project and address some of the issues, specifically the frontage and common driveway issues that were just raised, in part because you've asked about it, and in part because you might recall that the real substance of the conversation we had, the initial presentation of our plans, occurred back on, I think it was August 3rd. But that wasn't a session of the public hearing. That was just an informal meeting of the board. You didn't have any feedback yet from boards, commissions, departments, officials of the town. And so really the opening of the public hearing occurred at the last meeting you had back about 3 weeks ago.
Correct.
And we didn't really get into much of an overview of the project at that time. We addressed 2 or 3 things that were of immediate concern to the board or of interest to the board, but you had some time constraints that evening, so we didn't provide that overview. So we'll provide the overview tonight. I'm going to ask Kyle to sort of defer to me the questions of frontage and common driveway because I'm prepared to address those. He can also tell you about a few things that have been changed. Since the last time we were before you, we prepared some profiles because one issue of concern that was raised a few meetings ago, I think at that informal session back in early August, was the effects or potential effects on the surrounding neighborhood, the closest abutters to the facility, and what their views would be, and what screening or buffering currently exists and will exist when the project is complete. So we've had some profiles prepared that will give the board a better sense and the public a better sense as to what those effects would be and what screening exists or will exist, and really the distance between the panels themselves and the nearest residences.
It would be good for you to know that I and Mark Ashenbo, our current planner, again, welcome. We did a site walk yesterday, so we're fully versed on the geography, if you will.
Okay,
And
that's great.
I don't think any questions will come out of that, but
Okay, but it may be of some benefit to the public because I know those were concerns that were raised during that informal session.
I saw everybody's backyard. So.
We won't get too deep into, and I don't think the board would want us to, for example, the correspondence back and forth with DPW. I think we've worked through several of their
those issues are addressed, and we have Mark Wetzel here with us as well. As questions come up, I think we can all answer them in the room.
Okay, and I think likewise, I saw just yesterday a copy of KP Law's letter to the board addressing the abutter concerns, which I had previously responded
we had that
to.
As well.
Obviously, frontage and common driveway are addressed in that document. They're addressed in mine as well, and when I speak to those issues, I'll speak to the letters. But beyond that, I'm not going to get into the finer points of those letters. I think they speak for themselves,
Right.
and if the board has
No
questions.
need. I just want you to be aware that
Yes.
question was raised.
Fair enough. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Kyle and give him an opportunity to present the plans very quickly and then talk about some of the updates.
As I understand it, Mr. Chairman, we don't have the availability of a Mondo pad, which might make it easier to present this overall, to display it to everyone. So I just have this board in front, if I may. You know, the project involves a private driveway entrance coming off of Washington Street, just south of Madigan Lane. It's about a 1,350-foot long driveway, about 450 feet of which is paved. There are several stormwater facilities along the first 8% slope of the driveway, tree box filters and water quality swales. Down here at the very low point of the driveway, there's a dual 4-foot wide, half filled with natural substrate, arch culvert to pass the water that comes through here from the subdivision, from the hospital, without overtopping the driveway in a 100-year storm event. There is an underground detention facility there as well that functions integrally with that whole stormwater setup. There are 2 wetland replication areas to account for just under 5,000 square feet of wetland disturbance at this crossing. First area is here, second area is here. There's a recorded order of conditions from the Conservation Commission that has been issued for the project for this and for these replication areas and for all the work that's within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. Driveway comes up, comes over, there's a larger detention facility, which is mainly taking water flowing off of the Madigan Lane subdivision to help us overcompensate here where we couldn't here. This is the function of the overall stormwater system. There's also a stormwater infiltration facility here, and a couple more water quality swales off at this corner around the solar array field, which measures about 3.2 acres within the fence line of the solar array. Total disturbance area is about 6.3 acres. Driveway continues on. There's a turnaround at this end for any vehicles that might show up. There is a sanitary sewer line for the town that comes from the hospital, serves the hospital, drains down along the rail trail and out. We've made accommodation for that with 2 fence gates. We've added details at the request of DPW for electric line conduits that will have to cross that easement and sewer line. We do have a proposed sewer line that will connect into the DPW system, but it's going to be installed dry under this plan because there's not currently any house plans for the connection to that sewer. It's also a dry water line connection that will be made out at the time of the construction of the driveway, so there's no need to rip that up for any future residential lot use. These are essentially the components of the plan. As Mr. Costa pointed out, we did create these additional cross sections which are focusing on the fenced-in solar array area. There are a couple of houses particularly of interest that are closest to the solar arrays. Mr. Horgan's property has this cross section here and a cross section here. The intent behind this is to show a distinction between where the view shed would be across the driveway, goes quite a long ways before you hit the solar farm. Here it's at its closest point, which is roughly 270 feet from the house to the nearest panels. There is a 50-foot buffer at that point, and that's about 160 feet from the house along that line. Then there's Mr. Gardner's property here, which again is about 270 feet from the house to the panels, again with a 50-foot or so buffer of existing forest that's going to be left in place right along this line. That 50-foot line narrows down where the stormwater facility is. But at that point, then all you're looking at is the driveway and trees on the other side, except at this one pinch point where you have this long view where you're 420 feet from the house to the panels. So this is the new information that we brought forward, and our understanding of what the board had requested previously is some kind of assessment of what is the scale and distance and screening that is going to be left in place for between the adjacent residences and the solar development. So that's all I have. If there are no questions.
Any questions from, okay, Charlie?
From the house, you gave those measurements, but how far from the back lot line? Because they're able to put a structure 5 feet away from their lot line.
The abutters are?
Yes.
Well, there's an existing gravel trail. This is approximately the line, lined up all the property lines, and then there's about, between 25 and 50 feet of trees, but the nearest panels are about 100 feet.
From the back rear property line.
There's one point where they're 100 feet. The rest is farther than 100 feet.
Where is the 25-foot screen? I thought you said on this there was 25 to 50.
Yes, on this orange one right here. Now there's still some fairly tall trees that are in that location and a light understory, but there is a 25-foot width here.
Okay.
I'm sorry, right here, right at the property line.
Where the line crosses.
Correct.
On the driveway.
Right here.
Thank you.
Here.
And isn't screening usually meant isn't there some actual definition of screening that is a certain percentage evergreen? And not just whatever is there?
Well, I think that the way, I think it's section 9.3 of the bylaw is written is that this would all be taken down. All this existing older growth would be taken down, and 6-foot trees would be put in place rather than the, 80 to 100-foot mature trees that are here with the understory that's there. And because of the elevation of the homes, these trees are actually in their mature state are providing probably a better level, certainly would provide a better level of screen than if you wiped it out and planted new.
Granted, in the summer.
But there's a mix of
And I
everything.
also did a walk up there too, and I think there are some places where there's almost no screening for close to half the year, right, when the leaves fall down.
There's a mix of hardwood and pines.
If I could, Kyle, the only point I wanted to make, because there was some confusion, there was a reference made in the abutters letter to the board, and some discussion was had, maybe at that first meeting, about Section 9.3 and the requirements. Section 9.3 doesn't actually technically apply to the project that's before you. I'm not saying that you couldn't reference it for purposes of determining what might be an appropriate buffer in your discretion, but and KP Law agreed on this point with my response to the abutters' concern, which was Section 9.3 addresses uses of property in the business or industrial districts. And if you're in the general business or industrial district and you've got a use that is immediately adjacent to a residential use, you're required to buffer it per the explicit requirements of that section. And there's a whole series of subsections with different requirements, different standards. We're not in those districts, so those requirements don't apply. Again, I'm just stating it because it is the bylaw we're working with, and it is the bylaw with which we're required to comply, and there is no requirement that we comply specifically with Section 9.3. But I understand the concern.
Well, I'm glad you agree, though, that it would be reasonable to apply that for this situation, unusual situation.
Further
Yeah.
questions? Go ahead.
Chairman, based on our site visit, one thing that I would have liked to have seen was a delineation, if it's possible, in the field of the 50-foot buffer, so that you can clearly see which trees are going to be retained versus where you have to do the clearing work. So,
Well, there will be a very clear delineation with the construction fencing at the time that the project is built, and certainly would be as much discretion, not to go through trees and to save as many trees as possible in that area.
but I know you can't be exact for any one specific tree, but just to get a general sense, it might give people some comfort to see, to be able to visualize what the areas that are proposed to be within that buffer.
Kind of listen to that, the footpath along there is kind of the outer limit of the screening, and then it's whatever depth, 50 feet or less of the crossing into that from the footpath. So it's pretty well defined as that strip of 50 feet right along that footpath.
The footpath is really the delineation at the property line, so you go in 25 to 50 feet from that.
Further questions? Ken?
Chairman, I would like to approach the board.
Certainly.
Mr. Costa. So we have quite a different approach to the linear approach and the drawing approach, and we think we need to use more of a real approach in the field. So look what we really have here. And so what I've done is I took their drawing. You said you went to the field. And I took photographs along that path to show in real time from the edge of the lot line, as Mr. Schultz noted, and not from the house line, because we feel the impact is from the person's lot line, from the lot, not from where the house is necessarily located. So we want to consider
would you
the
mind-
entire view.
Would you mind turning that back to the first page where you were showing the, on your plan?
Have you addressed these questions to the applicant?
No.
Not yet?
We are now.
Well, we haven't had
The
enough.
delineation you're showing with the green area
You'd like to start with that.
as buffer, I'll use my, my and my neighbor's property as an example. Is that included in your buffer?
No.
No.
So, but you're showing it as screening.
Well, I mean, if we wish, we could draw a line at the property line right here.
That's
Yes.
basically what we did.
Okay.
We just said, we defined the lot, this is the lot of the solar location, same as this drawing on the board. And we're talking only now, for instance, at the area where the houses are located. We didn't even discuss the area that Kyle mentioned, rightfully so, that was approved by conservation. However, down in here, there is no screening at all because there's no lot line distance. The work of the job is right on the lot line. So Mr. Madigan gets exceptionally affected by losing all the trees, basically, that are right on his property line, because this perimeter of the work in this point of the job is right on the lot line. As you get further down, as they pointed out, it gets to the 50-foot distance. So the concept of 50 feet, 25 feet, 75 feet, whatever you want to call it, is only in play as you get down where the houses are. It's not in play in the first 700-800 feet of the road, as that part goes right to the property lines. All of
Okay,
that-
so now this goes to a question or a point you want to make? I mean, you haven't
What I
framed your
wanna
question
make-
yet.
What I want to make is, the point is this: if you take these photographs, this is what it really looks like in the field. There is virtually no screening at the lower level. In all of these particular situations, the screen,
When you say the lower level, you're
the
talking
ground
about,
level. So I'm standing on the road, I'm standing at ground level.
where on this map are you standing?
These are they're numbered 1, 2, 3, right
Okay.
down the road. And that's what I've done. So I've basically gone down the road. You can take and look at these, but it doesn't matter where we go. It's the same situation, it's pretty much clear. The first 25, 30, 40 feet of the trees. So our contention is that
Okay,
Screening-
I'm just slow. This picture is taken here,
right,
facing which direction?
facing towards the property, from the lots, from the residence lots here, towards the new project.
But this
So
property
should-
was harvested for lumber several years ago. So to suggest that it's a dense forest, it is not.
This is.
Yeah, again, just yesterday I did the site walk, so I'm fully aware
I'm
of,
not sure if you've seen it. Jeff may not have seen it.
I've actually been on the property.
Okay, so we're trying to just point out that taking a look in 2 dimensions on a drawing
right,
doesn't represent what's in the
Right.
field.
If you don't mind, let me ask a quick question. You took these at your height, standing on
Yeah.
the ground.
Just standing there.
Do you mind, Kyle? I just want to get a feeling for the distance. So I look at this. How high is the foundation line of that house? Let's say this is top one. What's the difference in elevation between the bottom of the foundation line of the house and the bottom of that pine tree? What's that? in feet?
That's approximately, it could be, 30 feet.
More than a person.
I've seen these, I actually walked the site yesterday.
Just want to make sure I know what I'm looking at there. So basically from the home, you may be looking at somewhere higher up on these trees.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
But in the wintertime, that foliage
I agree.
is not going to be.
Mhm.
So we're trying to use the discretion of the board, or mentioning this to the board, so the board can use the discretion to create a better all-around buffer for the neighbors. And that would include potentially something. So the other thing was, with Kyle's drawing, you've got a pine tree there, that I don't know how tall the pine tree is. If you showed the drawing representing the foliage that was there, I don't think you'll find a pine tree or an evergreen tree that's got that kind of shape and size where he shows it on that drawing. There just aren't any there at the moment.
Yeah, no, again, that's why we've done a site walk, so
Okay,
we're
so
aware.
I don't need to go into this, but this basically shows you an aerial view. It's pretty thin. These are basically, photographs taken off of Google Earth.
Yep,
They demonstrate the foliage that's there, especially in the area of the property lines, is thin. And there's a tremendous amount of impact based on that. This is the closer view. So these are basically just to demonstrate to you, we don't agree with the analysis that the screening that's in place out there represents, bona fide screening, and that the board will take measures, we believe, to improve the screening that's there. As an example,
Chairman?
go ahead, what?
As an example, this is a project that's done in air by National Grid. off of Park Street.
Okay.
These are the plantings that were installed behind the fencing in the existing project. Those are on the north side of the project off of Park Street, in place now. These evergreen are a good 8 to 10 feet high, spade installed with a machine, expensive, very well done and thought out. And this project went through ZBA, well, it's like, you know, the requirements of ZBA. I'm not sure what they were called for to do that, but they did install these trees on the north side. So in a situation like this, if you take that view, it's pretty clear to see that that does make a big impact. And the trees in the background of these photographs most likely represent what the trees might look like in the wintertime, because I took these pictures in the wintertime, with no trees, with no leaves on the trees. So again, we'd like you to consider that kind of permanent.
Okay,
If I may.
I actually have that in my notes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I just ask one question? This is the National Grid one that's up on the hill off of Park Street.
Right.
If I'm not correct, if I'm correct, would this be the rail trail in the
No,
background of
you
this one?
can't, no, that's,
Okay.
I'll show
I just
you.
can't figure out where I'm looking.
I'll show you right there. Here's an aerial map of the town. Yeah. And we're looking, well, I'll point it towards the chair, so it's upside down. So our project is sitting right here. That's our project. Here's the project that was completed off of Park Street.
Yeah.
This is the side of the project that
Okay, thank you.
the evergreens are installed on, the north-facing side.
Yeah.
In this particular situation, unfortunately, the neighbors on that side, it was business zone, and the installation was installed fairly close to them. The neighbors to the north did have the benefit of a larger existing tree line, and the project was not impacting that, but they still installed the evergreen trees on that side. Air Solar 1, which is just on the other side of the rail trail from our project, also was impacted. There's virtually nobody to the north of the project. All our homes are to the north of the project or northeast of the project. It seems to us that a better effort could be taken to, so we're looking
I
at.
know that's Manningham Lanes, but there's only one is here.
Air Solar 1's right there.
Yeah, you were pointing here at the time, but there's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bradley changes now.
Yeah, blew it up, Gina.
Yep, thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, you have a question?
I like that picture because this is similar to what I was thinking. I think he is correct that the natural trees that are present there now have an advantage with height. But they do have the disadvantage that most of them are gone. So you would be suggesting similar to that picture where it's
Yes.
mixed together.
Right. I'm suggesting that, to keep what they've suggested that they keep,
At least that high.
but we add this type of screening that would be a benefit to the abutters. What else? I guess we don't have to go much further than
Mr. Chairman?
that. No, let's let them, they're gonna,
Cal?
One of the things that we had talked about a long time ago is the fact that because of the height differential between the houses in the backyard and what we've got and the height of our actual fencing down below, that no matter how much you do in the way of screening at the edge of the fencing, it's not really going to be effective. If you're 30 feet above looking down, you may screen the first couple of rows, but then you're going to see past that. And one of the suggestions we had made is that if they wanted to do some additional screening, the most effective place for that would be at the upper levels of those backyards, which then would be effective in screening. But putting screening down the bottom of the hill is really a waste of time because you're not going to stop the view of the project other than from somebody walking by.
Again, Mark and I have a benefit of having the site walk just yesterday, so a lot of these things are fresh, and I'm going to address them in my comments.
And if I, may I ask one quick
Yes,
question?
question.
Cal, thank you. So what you're suggesting is actually getting permission to plant on the abutter's land to create the screening? As close to the
As the upper
That's,
levels.
I mean, I'm reading between the lines here,
That's
and that's
exact,
basically
yeah.
what you're saying.
we don't agree with, I don't agree with that. I believe that what Mr. Goldsmith says is incorrect, and that this does maintain a good quality screening right next to the project.
Okay. Further questions? Kevin, you're looking at me.
They may have more, so we've addressed what our concerns are, I've addressed what our concerns are on screening, but we have other things.
My question relates to the appeal.
I'm sorry?
My question relates to the appeal,
What appeal?
the appeal to the ZBA.
That's not before us. It'd be out of order for me to comment on that. That would be something the ZBA,
But with
Should
due
comment.
respect, I think it is before us. I think that, because we're running in parallel.
how so?
The applicant has filed an appeal against the decision of the ZBA.
But again, that's not a matter for me to act on.
Correct, but their appeal is basically questions why we're here in the first place.
But again, I would ask you to channel that to the ZBA and not here.
But my question is, if there's an appeal in process, I mean, the applicant has said in previous meetings,
Right.
if in fact this process goes in their favor, if they're acceptable to everything that this board implements, then they will withdraw their appeal.
That's between them and the ZBA.
But they stated that at a previous meeting. So
It has
we're
no,
going through on, and I'm telling them I want them to plant 80-foot trees. You implement that, they're gonna say, well, no, we don't wanna do that because that's gonna cost us too much money. So why can't we cut to the chase and find out what exactly are they willing to do? And if we're not acceptable to it, let's go to the appeal.
well, again, that whole matter is not for us to act on.
I understand that, but why are we allowing the applicant to run in parallel with the appeal? The appeal is in place. The appeal has been filed, and the state has not ruled on that appeal just yet as to why they need to be here or not.
A separate matter. There are some other contingent matters.
I don't think it is a
That
separate
would-
matter because we're here. The planning board has allowed this to take place in parallel with an appeal. I just don't understand how that can happen. And I don't understand.
Here's-
You're giving the applicant the
Let me
advantage.
explain to you how it can happen. The initial first paragraph from the planning board says, under general purposes, the planning board can X. Now, let me give you an idea. Under 10.6 of our site plan review criteria, we would look at minimize use of steep slopes, minimize obstruction of scenic views, minimize tree vegetation, maximize open space, screen objectionable features, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to some degree, we'll act on those items that we can require. The issue still comes down to the bottom line. They really don't even have to be here. This project does not require, under current law, does not require site plan review. The fact
According to
that they...
ZBA, it does.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
ZBA ruled it does.
Believe me when I tell you that as a matter of, as of right, when you look at the legal commentary back from our legal review, 9 out of 10 questions are all as of right. So they don't have to be here. The fact that they are is encouraging to me to say that you're going to do a facility that under state law you're allowed to do on your property. And thank you for letting us make some commentary as to how you're going to do it so it benefits the neighborhood and all involved. That's really where we're at legally. And for me to comment on a ZBA matter is just inappropriate, so I can't do that. I
The
can't
state
allow
law
the
also
board to
allows
do
you to
that.
reasonably regulate it.
Say again?
The state law also allows you to reasonably regulate it.
Well, yes, true, and we will in the future. As of now, we have no regulation to do that with. When we move forward on our zoning bylaw, which we have now projected out to the spring to enable us to do that as a town, we will put some solar array and/or solar photovoltaic rules and regulations in place, which then, yes, then we will have the power to regulate. Currently, we don't. So that's where we're at today. But again, I appreciate your comment. All right, thank you. Well, then again, I've just jumped forward to what will ultimately come in our conditions. We'll maximize to the ability possible what I would call item number 5, screening objectionable features, visual and audible, from neighboring properties and roadways. when we did the site walk, I agree, there are properties that are 30, 40 feet above that even if you put a 40-foot pine tree, you're still going to see over it to what is 400 or 500 feet away, which is the solar array. So to what degree we come to an agreeable vegetation management plan, and the applicant has already agreed to do that. That's where we're at on that matter of vegetation. So, further questions now from the board and/or? Okay, let me move then forward to.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, if you have a question, let's address it. Because
I haven't got to the issue yet. So.
Say again?
Mr. Costa brought up the letter from KP Law, and so based on the fact that he brought it up, there's a question in there about the frontage.
Right.
Are you going to talk?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, before I do that, I open my commentary with directed toward Adam, if you're ready to address again the questions of frontage and common drive and any commentary on the local review of the draft conditions, because we're, so.
Aye.
I would add, by the way, I haven't see Mark Wetzel sitting back there minding his own business, but within the matter of conditions is going to be some form of construction bond, maintenance bond, and decommissioning bond. That is the item that we're primarily requiring our own legal review of. And if you could address what you feel is appropriate toward the to those matters. I think you have the memo from Mark as to the. Okay.
I do.
Good. Thank you.
So if I could, Mr. Chairman, let me
Yes,
first address the issue of frontage. So the issue of frontage and an allegation of a potential lack of frontage is something that was raised in the abutters letter that was submitted 1 or 2 meetings ago to the board. And that, of course, was responded to by me in my letter of September 21st to the board, submitted at the last session of the public hearing, and was the subject of further review by
let me pinpoint the matter on that.
Yes.
It's my understanding your frontage is allowed by way of Riley Jane, correct?
That is correct.
Is
Lot
the,
10.
is the document recorded to that,
Yes.
to that effect?
Because
we-
Subdivision approval?
Say again?
Subdivision approval is on record, yes.
Okay. I think that answers my building commissioner question then. Is my building commissioner still in the room?
No, I am, yes.
Okay.
The last time I looked, there was still a line dividing the back parcel to the lot that was subdivided.
Right, they're in common ownership, that has not been, we haven't filed an 81X plan to erase that line.
Right, it's not been recorded that line's not gone, so technically there's not frontage there.
Nor would it be until such time as a permit issue. So under Chapter 41, Section 81X, and it's
Right,
explicitly
right.
referenced,
So
I think, in
that-
KP's
that'll
memo.
present itself under permit time.
That's correct, and it doesn't even require an approval by the board. It's simply
Right.
a perimeter plan
Okay,
that goes in
that-
record at the
that
registry of
answers the
deeds,
question.
eliminates interior lot lines.
That answers the question.
That's
Okay.
okay.
Moving on.
Common driveway. So you've got provisions in your existing zoning bylaw that address common driveway. In fact, you've got one provision in your zoning bylaw. You've got another provision that almost seems to be contrary in your general bylaws. Your general bylaws say no more than 2 residential dwellings may share a common driveway or access way. You then have a provision in your zoning bylaw that says a driveway, or defines a common driveway as a driveway serving up to 3 detached dwelling buildings. So whether it's 2, whether it's 3, the reality here, and the point that I made in my memo, and it's been echoed in KP Law's letter, is that there's not an application before you presently
Right.
for any sort of subdivision lots. And
Right.
frankly, if there's a future A&R division of land along the utilizing the driveway that we're proposing here, but Washington Street for frontage, it would be an A&R plan that wouldn't require subdivision approval,
Right.
which is something that Amy Quessel makes reference to in her letter as well.
So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there, if we need to get there. But again, I don't foresee any proposal for the driveway that's being proposed being used as a subdivision roadway. The obvious intent of this restriction on common driveways, most communities have one, is to avoid a situation where a common driveway really becomes an end run around a subdivision roadway. Suddenly you've got common driveways that are serving 5 or 6 residential dwellings, and when do you say enough is enough and require it to comply with your subdivision rules and regulations?
Right.
That's not what's being proposed here. We've currently got a non-residential use before the board, and if in the future there were to be any division of the remaining land into house lots, there's a potential for 2. Those would be A&R lots, and
Right.
there's at this point there's no proposal, nor do I foresee
No
one,
application for
to
that.
subdivide the land. That's correct.
Okay.
The last issue was
So,
your bonding issues.
overall, any commentary from the applicant on our current draft conditions?
Well, I've got a commentary on the bonding requirements.
Okay.
So, find the provision here. I've reviewed the memorandum you just referenced from Mr. Wetzel dated today. Certainly, we've got no issue with the decommissioning bond, or
Okay.
decommissioning surety, I should be clearer. There are different forms of sureties. There are letters of credit, bonds, cash accounts. We've discussed some of those previously. We've got no issue with a decommissioning surety. We'd like to think that that is something in terms of the form of surety that's provided that will be worked out at a later date with the board, as it was with Ayer Solar 1 prior to commencement of construction, which is the most appropriate time.
21.9.
The amount is acceptable, that's correct. So the decommissioning bond is, or decommissioning surety is no issue.
Okay.
The construction bond and maintenance bonds are somewhat of a different story. The construction bond is not something, frankly, that I expected to see, and it's a bit unusual for this sort of a project because of the nature of the project. So we see construction bonds, or the equivalent of construction bonds, with subdivisions all the time, when there are roadways that are being developed for the benefit of multiple potential future subdivision lot owners and homeowners. The concern being that if those roadways, especially if they are to be accepted by the town in the future, if those roadways are completed in part but not in full, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 house lots are sold along the roadway, but the remaining house lots are not sold, and for whatever reason the developer walks away, goes belly up, doesn't complete the roadway, there needs to be some mechanism for the town to ensure that the homeowners who've already bought along the roadway are not prejudiced or not harmed by the fact that the roadway hasn't been completed. This is different because, number one, we're not proposing any sort of a roadway at all. It's not anything that is ever going to be accepted by the town because we're not constructing it to roadway standards. We're not proposing a subdivision roadway. Second of all, there are no house lots that are being proposed along the driveway. It's not a roadway. So you're not in the same situation where there's a concern for future homeowners who may acquire an interest in lots or in residences along the subdivision roadway and may be harmed in the future if that roadway is not completed. So it seems to be a bit unusual. I sort of liken this to any other sort of non-residential project. Commercial industrial building is going to be constructed and is going to have a lengthy driveway, whether it's over an adjacent property by way of easement or it's on the property itself to provide access to that industrial use. If the industrial use is something that is only subject to site plan approval and not a special permit, you wouldn't typically see a construction bond because that's an issue with private property. It's in private ownership, being privately developed. If the developer doesn't construct that driveway as it should, and there are harms that result, well, I mean, that's the issue of the private developer, the private landowner. It's not a situation where you're dealing with a subdivision or a future roadway that's going to be conveyed to the town. So the construction bond is a bit unusual to me.
So where then is the image in my mind of 2 houses being developed later at some point? Although those matters are not before us now, where is the access to those 2 properties that are
The
said
entire
to
driveway
ultimately
would have to
become?
be constructed to get access to the solar field, to construct it and so on. It provides that access.
Right.
So it will be in place when some future lot locations would be right here, adjacent to the constructed driveway.
Okay. So it's a given then, as I know we talked about it briefly yesterday, on the level of construction of that road would meet DPW standards for access. We already said 20 feet wide and
It's 20 feet wide, there's no steeper.
Defined
ramps and
impervious.
slopes. Yeah, but
okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yep. Thank you, Adam.
Russell, Superintendent of Public Works. My biggest concern is, they're not just building a driveway on a flat field. This is a very complicated construction, and there's a lot of impacts on wetland resources and abutters if this doesn't get done. It basically will create a dam at the bottom of the hill. You've got a very steep driveway with a lot of fill, and you've got a lot of wetlands that are impacted. And they start doing work down there, and then the developer goes belly up. Now you've got a lot of impacts on the butters and on the town's resources. So that's my feeling on why a construction bond should be required for this project.
Okay. Adam?
Thank you. So the other bond is a maintenance bond, and I guess, I was a bit less surprised by that, but then I tried to think, and you would certainly know better than I. I do work in a lot of communities, and I can't say that I'm familiar with every project or every recent project in the town of Ayer, but I don't know if these sorts of maintenance bonds are bonds that you would require of the typical project that came before the board, typical non-residential project, be it commercial, be it industrial, that comes before the board seeking site plan approval, something that is not subject to a special permit process. The concern that I would have, of course, is that this is an exempt use, and we are before you, as you laid out earlier, Mr. Chairman, really as a courtesy. Without getting into the logistics of the litigation, which I clarified at the last meeting was really a placeholder for us vesting our rights, but we were here before you in the spirit of cooperation to try and address some concerns that the town and the board has. We're really here in an effort to make this a better project and to satisfy the town, as opposed to trying to make some end run around the town and do what we believe is just availing ourselves of our rights and claiming that we're not required to be here. That being said, if you don't require these sorts of maintenance bonds for the typical commercial or industrial project, certainly it'd be unusual to require for a project that is not even a commercial or industrial project that it would be permitted under your bylaw, but in fact is an exempt use. Mm-hmm. So the standard for these exempt uses is that you can reasonably regulate it, which of course you've not done in your current zoning, or you can restrict them to certain zoning districts, which again you've not done in your current zoning, and that they're generally entitled to greater protection than other commercial or industrial uses that aren't deemed to be zoning exempt. So to suggest that they should be subjected to a higher standard is concerning to me. If you give me examples of other instances in town where this standard has been applied, I think maybe we could come around to it, or we can have a conversation about what the appropriate amount would be. I also think that's a little unusual that it's a maintenance bond that's in the amount of the annual cost to inspect and maintain. So we're going to have, presumably, I've seen your list of proposed conditions, we're going to have a variety of conditions that require us to comply with our operation and maintenance plan for the property. And you'll have the authority in enforcing that condition yourselves or through your building inspector, enforcing that condition as a condition of approval of the project. And the ability to really revoke the permits that are applicable to the project if for whatever reason we're not complying. To require that we put bond money forth that is really only bond money to provide for one annual inspection. Again, I think you're in a position, and I've represented municipalities on the other side of the table where they're trying to enforce these sorts of provisions and conditions. You're bringing an action against the developer if the developer is refusing to comply, or you're revoking a permit that prevents the developer from operating, such that the developer has to come to you and work out the details of what's required to maintain the system. So it usually doesn't ever get to the point where you're actually reaching and applying funds that have been provided in some cash account or by way of some letter of credit, because there's a lot of hurdles that have to be overcome before you get there. So it just seems like additional money that the applicant's being asked to part with or to put up in some sort of an account or to bond, when the reality is that that's not the typical mechanism that's used to enforce compliance with the conditions of the O&M plan. We're going to be bound by that plan. It's going to be in your decision. We presented portions of it to you already. So,
okay. All right. I'd like to questions by the board.
Can I address the maintenance bond?
Yep.
Ayer does have some precedence on similar maintenance bonds where they have, for instance, up on the Pingree Hill development with HOAs that put money into an account to do maintenance on the stormwater. This is a very complicated stormwater management system that has a lot of innovative or not typical types of systems that we're not really sure what the maintenance requirements are. And if you drive around town and look at the private stormwater systems in town, they may say that they have to go in and mow them 4 times a year. Well, I guarantee none of them get mowed 4 times a year. They get mowed when they tell them to mow. So my concern is that you've got a complicated system. We're not sure how it's going to work because it's somewhat theoretical with the tree filter boxes and and the retention basins. And if it's not maintained, then it's not going to work, and someone's got to make sure that it does get done. Maintenance bonds for stormwater systems aren't really typical of municipalities, but for a lot of times where they may put in a pumping station or some sort of a water system, the town does require maintenance bonds, so that they make
Yeah,
sure.
well, we've seen that in other subdivision. Further comment?
Yeah, just again,
Cal?
this isn't a subdivision, and
Right,
it
true.
is private
True.
property.
Yep.
I was just struck by the fact that the DPW was taking some responsibility for maintenance of this private driveway. I just didn't expect that was something.
We're taking responsibility for the stormwater management in the community.
For the private driveway as well on a private property. I just found that
When
surprising.
you have a
that's all.
stormwater management plan, you have to follow it. That's part of your approval.
Right.
And if you don't follow it, what do we do? Just say, oh, well, they're not answering the phone?
Well, no, I think that's what Adam addressed before, the fact that you've got approvals that the board can take action on. But, I mean, I think he's right, and, I mean, you've dealt with trying to take bonds from developers. It's not something you generally ever try to do. It's not something you're ever particularly successful with. You end up getting stuck with it.
And I guess my point
I
is...
would say it gives us a lot of leverage.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that you're never successful with it or that you can't take the bond. I guess my point is you got to go through a lot of steps to get there.
Right.
So the fact that you've got, if you weren't going to condition the decision at all on compliance with an O&M plan, but you were going to require bonding, okay. But the idea that you're including a variety of conditions that state that compliance with the O&M plan is mandated, providing for great specifics as to the frequency with which inspections need to be done, et cetera. You can make that call and say you have to mow the grass, and we've got to mow the grass. We're going to mow the grass long before you ever get to a point where you provided us with advance notice that you're going to utilize the funds. You've given us a hearing and an opportunity to be heard on actually utilizing the funds that we placed into escrow.
Yep.
There's a lot of due process
Yeah, points-
considerations prior
points
to
well
utilizing the
taken.
funds. So it
Understood.
seems like it's unnecessary money where you've got the other protections in your decision. That was my only point, the practicality of it all.
Mr. Chairman?
Good.
I heard Mark Wetzel's answer about the maintenance bond. Did you also address Mr. Costa's questions about the reasonableness of the road construction bond?
I think I did address that.
I
You did, yeah.
Could you repeat that?
Well,
I
it's
read it
a
too.
very, it's not a typical driveway into a project. There's a lot of potential problems if it doesn't get constructed properly with respect to, slope failures, with water resources impacts on the gutters, with stormwater backing up, with the wetlands getting
Okay.
silted up. And so if it has to get constructed right to make sure everything works properly.
Okay.
Could I add one thing, Mr. Chairman, just for the board's consideration as you think through this concept of these different various bonds? As you might imagine, the only reason for any pushback on the bonding issue or the surety issue is that with the surety comes a certain cost and expense to a developer. If you start to add together a construction bond, a maintenance bond, a decommissioning bond, each at a substantial 5-figure sum or close to it, and before you know it, you're talking about a fair amount of money, particularly if that's not going to be provided in the form of a letter of credit. So I guess I would ask the board to give some consideration to, first and foremost, the form of surety, whether you're going to allow something like a letter of credit, which is easier to come by and less expensive for a developer than putting the money up in a cash account. Or another possibility would be, to the extent that you're considering providing for multiple bonds, your bylaw allows for bonding, as KP Law cites to in its letter, but it allows for a bond. It doesn't reference multiple bonds. So I wonder whether there's some sort of economy of scale here with respect to a bond being provided for maybe multiple purposes. The reality is you're not going to have to seek bond monies or surety monies for construction, maintenance, and decommissioning. One's going to happen before the other. Once one stage is completed, like construction, you're going to be moving on. Decommissioning is not going to happen prior to construction. Construction is not going to be happening at the time of decommissioning. So the concept of some bond that would provide for multiple uses, but would be in a lesser amount than adding together construction plus maintenance plus decommissioning might be something that would be financially feasible for the applicant, but also satisfy concerns that the board might have if the board has those concerns. So just a couple of things for the board to consider as you think through the issue of bonding.
Further questions from the board? Okay. Okay. Well, in a nutshell, if you will, now again, keep in mind, yes. Any other questions? Ken?
So Mr. Coster mentioned the KP Law letter, which I have here. In fact, the KP Law, basically glossed over the legal frontage and other issues. KP Law states in the letter that I was not, this is the letter, I was not provided a set of plans. But both the abutter and applicant indicated 100-foot frontage is provided by the abutting lot 10 Riley Jane subdivision. In my opinion, this frontage is sufficient. It's a distance, because the subdivision road was approved during the subdivision pursuit. Without plans, I cannot comment whether or not the subdivision plan must be modified. They didn't have a plan to look at. They didn't look at the whole concept of the thing. So they really didn't render any kind of a decision. They just basically said, they agree with the 100-foot rule. We bring up a concept which I'm sure Mr. Costa is aware of. Around the state, it's a known concept. And that's the concept of, and I'll get the word wrong, illusory frontage. Illusory. I'm sure you know what it is.
The illusion of?
Illusory. And it's a case law point that's been brought up all over the state and backed up by planning boards, zoning boards, and so forth, which basically states, and our new zoning bylaw covers it, but we're not there yet, that you must have vehicular access from the frontage to the buildable portion of the lot. That clearly does not apply here in any way, shape, or form. We're kind of surprised that they continued with the concept of the frontage being on Riley Jane, because there's no way you can get from the Riley Jane portion of the road to the constructible portion of the lot through the frontage. On top of that, the question that I raised in my letter, which goes beyond that, goes to the point that the Riley Jane road has not been constructed yet. It's only been paved to a portion of the road. So here's photographs of what the frontage looks like today. And there's nothing there. There's wires there, overhead wires, and the applicant, according to the registry of deeds, has not received permission to construct along their lot under the wires. The lot basically was designed to sit directly under the first length of the lot, the frontage, and then its continuance to the lot line is completely under the 125-foot right-of-way that's owned by National Grid and used by National Grid. So at the moment, this is our frontage. We have no frontage. There's no road, and it's under the power lines, and it basically has to go through wetlands and around and about. Therefore, we contend the frontage is illusory, that's the correct pronunciation, and as a result of being illusory, does not qualify for a building permit based on that, because it doesn't have legal frontage. I'm not a lawyer.
So that's okay.
Take it.
I will. So I'm certainly familiar with the concept of illusory frontage, ILLUSORY, illusory frontage.
The illusion
So,
of.
right, exactly. Illusory frontage and the concept of it arose in the context of approval not required plans. So the typical standard for an approval not required plan, as you're all aware, is that you can surpass or bypass the usual subdivision process if you've got a parcel or a number of parcels that have existing frontage along one of three types of ways specified in the statute, and that frontage is of the distance required by your zoning bylaw. That's the standard that has been in effect for 30, 40, almost 50 years now. Through case law, there has been a clarification of that standard, because there were issues where developers were creating A&R lots where the buildable portion of the lot simply couldn't be reached via the frontage that was being used for purposes of the A&R endorsement. And so the court said you can't have illusory frontage in order to gain an A&R endorsement. You have to actually be able to access the buildable portion of the lot. You don't necessarily have to access it over the frontage, but you need to have some form of access to it. You've got to meet the frontage in one location or the same location as where you're going to access it. You've got to have actual physical and legal access. I litigated that case about a year ago because there was a question for a while about whether you needed the actual legal access too. You need both physical and legal access to the buildable portion of the lot. Our circumstance is different for a couple of reasons. The first is we're not seeking an A&R endorsement from this board. We're utilizing for frontage, calculable frontage, the existing Riley Jane lot, lot 10, which we're going to combine via an 81X perimeter plan with the remainder of the property. So number one, we're not seeking an A&R endorsement, so the inquiry of whether the frontage is illusory never arises. It only arises in case law in the context of A&R endorsements. Number two, in Ayer, unlike in some other communities, there's no requirement that you access the buildable portion of your lot over your frontage. In fact, in many communities, there's not. Many other communities, there are. I litigated the case, as I said, not long ago in the town of Marblehead, which is a community I represent. And in Marblehead, there is also no requirement that you gain access to the buildable portion of your lot via your frontage. So you could have a corner lot where you use one side of the lot for calculating your 150 feet of frontage, and you've got 12 feet of frontage on the other side, but you're going to install your 10-foot wide driveway there. Perfectly legal. So we're not actually utilizing it, the frontage that we're using for purposes of calculating frontage to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. We're not using that Riley Jane lot for the actual access to the property. Of course, we've been talking ad nauseum about this driveway and the construction standards of the driveway and the length of the driveway and the location of the driveway. We're utilizing the driveway for access to the lot. We're not utilizing the frontage that we're establishing over the Riley Jane lot. So I appreciate the concept of illusory frontage. I acknowledge that it exists. It exists in the A&R context. Not seeking an A&R endorsement, not gaining access via the Riley Jane lot.
Mr. Chairman. So I held off mentioning this illusory frontage on purpose because I was waiting to hear the word A&R, which was used by Mr. Goldsmith. Mr. Goldman stated just a little while ago that they intended to create an A&R lot by combining the two lots of Lot 10 and 439. So
An 81X.
in either case, does it become an A&R lot after you put the two lots together? Because you're taking an existing lot, an unbuildable lot, which is interesting enough, on Lot 10 is an unbuildable lot as it exists right now. There's a way to build it.
Sure.
You're creating a buildable lot. Does that new lot, it's going to be one of two things. It's going to be an A&R lot, or it's going to be part of the subdivision, Raleigh Jane subdivision, one of the two. It can't be nothing else. What is it going to be? I thought you said it was going to become, you were going to go for an A&R approval and create the new lot.
So there's a couple of
Using the A&R concept and
So-
the illusory frontage.
so there's confusion here because there's difference between A&R and 81X. So A&R is 81P. 81P speaks to dividing property that is in common ownership into multiple lots where you already have frontage along one of those three types of ways. No need to install a new subdivision roadway, you've got the frontage already.
Right.
That's an 81P approval not required plan.
Right.
81X is different. 81X says I've got all these various parcels of land. I purchased this one, then I purchased this one, then I purchased this one, then I purchased that one. I want to combine them all into one property. I want to eliminate the interior lot lines.
Yep.
That's a perimeter plan. As long as they're contiguous, you can eliminate interior lot lines. You create a perimeter plan, also known as an 81X plan, because that's a section of the statute that gives you the right to do this. You don't even require planning board approval to do that. It's just the concept of creating the plan, having a registered professional engineer stamp it, and you can go down to the registry and get it recorded. And that way you've combined it into a
Didn't we address this
single.
earlier?
What's that?
Didn't we just address this earlier?
We did. So, but there's some confusion here between A&R and 81X.
Okay.
So we're not utilizing, there was a reference to a potential future A&R because a question was asked about, well, aren't you going to be using this driveway to create a couple of dwelling lots? And we said, well, that's something we've explored, but we've not presented that to the board at the
Right.
present
That's not
time.
before
We're
us at
presented
the
all this
present.
before you as a solar project.
Right.
We've explored the possibility of utilizing two lots that have frontage along Washington Street, but would be better access via the driveway, of utilizing the driveway to access those lots and creating A&R lots in the future. We've not presented that to the board yet.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, ask
Sure.
one question.
Sure.
May- We're out on this tangent, I want to make sure. I understand, John, because 81X, 81P, I understand. The lot lines that you would be removing, are they drawn on this? Just so we're clear.
Kyle,
I assumed it was that black one.
Yeah.
Thank you. But,
Okay.
and the green one that goes up, that jogs up in the middle, that will remain its own.
Green one in the middle.
It is green. This one. That is.
That's a separate
That's-
lot.
That's a separate lot. Right. Just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
That's an existing lot line that
Yeah.
we're
Yeah. I just
Okay.
want to know which ones you're going to both disappear. Sure. Thank you.
Okay, to refocus now, again, the planning board is going to look at, in my estimation, three things, and I'll open it up to the board, but primarily a decision ideally by November 2nd on, or be prepared to make that decision, at least, on a determination that the proposed project will constitute a suitable development and is in compliance with the criteria as established by our bylaws. There'll be a written application if there's any denial or dispute. There'll be some back and forth correspondence perhaps between the applicants if there's any written disagreement on the decision. And then there'll be approval ultimately of the final set of conditions. So for my estimation right now, I think primarily we're looking certainly at the vegetation management plan to some degree, and we're also going to address thoroughly the requirement of a construction and/or maintenance bond. That's where I'm pretty much focused. I think, unless I missed anything, I think we're generally otherwise in agreement. That number one, the plan as presented is allowed as of right, and we're in agreement, both applicant and town, to setting a plan that works for all parties concerned. Any further questions at this time? Okay. Further comments by the board? Okay, I would like then to move that we set a November 2nd as a continuation.
Could I make a comment, Mr. Chairman? Just a request, and I'm not sure logistically how this would best work, but I'm aware, of course, that once the board meets again, presumably on November 2nd, the board would be prepared to vote on conditions,
Right.
but that you wouldn't necessarily have a document prepared before you that evening. And in my experience, we're then potentially looking at another meeting beyond the 2nd to review and
No, I
vote
think
on it.
that's why I put it to November 2nd. I
Okay.
think I've been assured from, and I know Robert's not in the room, I've been assured that town administrator would support me in this effort to press our legal team to respond very quickly.
So would it be appropriate for the board to, whether it be vote or to take some sort of a straw poll to give an indication to whomever it is that is going to draft the decision that the board is approving the project subject to conditions that'll be worked out? I guess what I don't want to have happen is show up on the 2nd. You've not necessarily given any indication tonight that you're yay or nay on the project. We've talked about conditions, the presumption being that the project will be approved, but then we're looking at another 2 or 3 or 4 weeks before another meeting will be scheduled. We're coming up upon the holidays.
Again, I really don't want to put my board in the position of responding on a set of conditions that they just got today. So
Understood.
that's why I don't want it, that's not fair. I personally have had it because I'm retired and I got nothing else to do.
No, and I'm not asking that the board speak to the conditions. I understand that.
You'd also like one board member at this point.
Right. No, I want them to be able to digest this, and I also want them to be able to digest the minutes and/or the transaction of tonight's meeting and come to some agreement, and over the course of appropriate correspondence, we'll come to that. And I fully expect through our town planner that we'll have a document before November 2nd that everybody looks at and says, yeah, this is what we're going to do. So, Mark, am I missing the boat here? I don't think so.
No, that sounds like a good plan.
No.
Mr. Chairman.
So ideally, I would say, let's take this document and come back Friday or Monday, in my mind, but I need legal time to do what we have to do.
Fair enough.
I'm first now seeing, as of yesterday, it's the first time I've seen, although I know of it in other areas, the issue of construction and maintenance bond, and I want to look at the financial impact of that. And again, as you've indicated, come to some agreement that can work for us all. It may well be, but I really think that we can do this November 2nd. I just want my board to allow enough time to digest it, and we'll be able to do that. Cal?
Chairman, did I understand you right when you said that there would be some correspondence back and forth between us and your
Yeah, as soon as we get through work, we're going to work through our town planner, Mark Ashenbo, in terms of finalizing the final set of conditions. That's going to go to legal, and that's going to also go to you probably beforehand to see that you agree or vehemently disagree.
or we can talk.
And I think by November 2nd, we come to agreement. So, any further questions? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. What is the 90-day deadline from the opening of this hearing?
Let's see, we opened it, I want to say August 3rd, is that about right?
No. It just opened last month.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
September
No, we just
21st.
opened it
Yeah.
last,
It means in December at some point.
September.
The actual 90 days is somewhere in the,
Yeah,
in the,
yeah.
in the neighborhood of December 2015. I can't count the days
I
in
would
my
just,
head.
I would just request that this.
Yeah,
board do
no,
its
I
due
really think
diligence.
we'll get this done by November 2nd, I really do.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I would just request that this board do its due diligence on a project of this magnitude that has probably never been in front of this board, that please do not be held to the deadline of November 2nd.
Oh.
If in fact, the responses you're looking for.
Yeah, no,
Bring up additional issues.
that's not what's driving the train here. Again, I mean, we're working with an applicant, again, that really doesn't have to be here. So I think we're all in the same goal here of coming up with something
That's
for
to
the
be decided,
community.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, so
Mr. Chairman, is there-
that won't be the driving issue here. It'll be some outstanding question that is yet to be answered. Is going to be, and I think we can answer all the questions by November 2nd.
one further question, is there any flexibility on the date of the 2nd? Is that an established meeting that you already have?
That's my next posted meeting,
Okay.
so I think it's time enough to get things done. I've been assured by my staff, and are we in agreement, board members? We'll be here November 2nd? All right, then. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you on November 2nd.
Following is the last date on the
Okay, again, I need, before we adjourn, I need the motion to continue the hearing to November 2nd at 6:15.
continue the hearing on Ayer Solar 2 to 6:15 on November 2nd.
Need a second? All in favor? Aye.